I remember the days when my art was everything. It was a passion, a calling that consumed every waking moment. My name, Elias, was synonymous with vibrant colors and canvases that held essence of life itself. Galleries clamored for my work, and the bright lights of fame illuminated my path. But as the seasons changed, so did my fortune. The admiration that once fueled me started to fade, and with it, my love for the paint and brush. I found myself in my studio more often than not, surrounded by paintings that seemed to mock my dwindling creativity. The colors that once danced under my touch now lay lifeless. In those moments of solitude, a dark thought crept into my mind, whispering of a new kind of art, one that could transcend the ordinary and touch the realm of the extraordinary. It was in this darkness that my true obsession began to take shape. I started wandering the streets at night, seeking inspiration in the city's underbelly. The sight and sound of the night whispered secrets to me, secrets of a raw, unfiltered existence that my art had never explored. In the shadows, I saw faces etched with stories of pain and ecstasy, and something within me stirred. It was an awakening, a realization that there was more to art than just paint and a canvas. One night, as I roamed the dimly lit alleys, I came across a lone figure, a man whose eyes reflected a deep, haunting sorrow. He was the perfect embodiment of the raw emotion I sought to capture. I approached him, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. Our conversation was brief, his life story a tapestry of tragedy and despair. He was perfect. I invited him to my studio under the guise of wanting to paint his portrait. He agreed, driven by a mixture of curiosity and the promise of a few dollars. As he sat there, under the harsh lights, I realized that merely painting him wouldn't suffice. I needed more. I needed to capture his essence in a way that was no ordinary portrait. The decision came to me in a flash, a moment of terrifying clarity. I would create a new kind of art, one that was alive with the subject's very essence. I remember the rush of adrenaline and the pounding of my heart as I made my first cut. His scream echoed in the studio, blending with the sounds of the city night outside. It was the most alive I've felt in years. I worked through the night, my hands guided with a newfound purpose. I was no longer a mere painter. I was a creator of something far more profound. The blood, the flesh, it was all a part of my masterpiece. I saw beauty in the grotesque, a poetic justice in the turning of his life into an eternal work of art. When the sun rose, casting a pale light through the dirty windows of my studio, I stood back to admire my work. It was unlike anything I had ever created, a chilling yet captivating piece that told a story far deeper than any of my previous paintings. I felt reborn, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my faded career. But with the dawn came the realization of what I had done. Panic set in, a cold sweat covering my brow as I looked at the lifeless form before me. I had crossed a line from which there was no return. I needed to hide my crime, to keep my newfound obsession a secret. I disposed of the remains meticulously, ensuring no trace was left behind. The city, so vast and indifferent, swallowed my secret without a hint of remorse. I returned to my studio, a sense of accomplishment filling the void that had plagued me for so long. I knew then that this was only the beginning. I discovered my true calling, a medium that spoke to me like no other. The thrill of the hunt, the rush of creation, it was intoxicating. I was no longer Elias, the forgotten painter. I was the creator of a new art form, one that was as beautiful as it was horrifying. And so, my journey into the darkness began. Each night I roamed the streets, searching for my next muse, my next masterpiece. The city, with its endless supply of lost souls, became my canvas, and I, its most devoted artist. My studio, once a place of life and color, transformed into a shrine of my macabre creations. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, my work evolved. Each piece was more elaborate than the last, a testament to my growing skill and insanity. I was no longer bound by the conventions of traditional art. I was free to explore the depth of my twisted imagination. But with each new creation, the risk of discovery grew. The city was on edge, whispers of a monster lurking in the shadows filled the air, and the police were on high alert, their investigations inching closer to my world of darkness. But I couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. My art was everything, the only thing that gave my life meaning. And so, I continued, driven by an obsession that knew no bounds. Each stroke of my blade, each piece of flesh sculpted was a step closer to my ultimate masterpiece. I was lost in my world of blood and beauty, a world from which there was no turning back. The artist in me had died, and in its place a new being had emerged, one that lived only for the thrill of creation, no matter the cost. I was no longer Elias. I was something else entirely, a creature reborn from the darkest corners of the human soul. As I sit here in my studio, surrounded by my chilling works, I know that my journey's far from over. The city, with its endless possibilities, calls to me, urging me to continue my quest for the ultimate expression of art. And I will answer the call, for I am an artist, and creation is my lifeblood. The city's dark corners no longer intimidated me. They were my hunting grounds. With each new victim, I pushed the boundaries of my art further, seeking to perfect my craft. I wasn't just a killer. I was an artist, and the city was my gallery. I remember the night I created what I considered to be my first true masterpiece. It was a woman this time, someone whose face told a story of hardship and resilience. In her, I saw a canvas that begged for my touch, a story that needed to be told through my unique perspective. The process was exhilarating, a dance between creator and creation that ended in a crescendo of blood and beauty. The next morning, the city woke to the horror of what I had done. News reports spoke of a gruesome discovery in an alleyway, a body not just killed, but transformed into something otherworldly. The police were baffled, calling it a sick work of a deranged mind. They weren't wrong, I suppose. But they couldn't see the artistry in it, the raw emotion that I had poured into every cut. My work started to gain notoriety. The media dubbed me the Sculptor, a name that I found fitting. It wasn't long before every murder I committed became a sensation. People were horrified, yet fascinated by the macabre beauty of my creations. I reveled in their fear and admiration. It fueled my desire to create more, to push the limits of my art. But with fame came the inevitable attention of the police. I knew they were closing in, piecing together the clues I had carelessly left behind in my early days. I had to be more careful, more selective. I couldn't let them stop me. Not when I was just beginning to explore the true potential of my craft. I started planning my kills with meticulous detail, choosing my victims more carefully, ensuring they were people whose disappearance wouldn't raise immediate alarms. The homeless, the forgotten souls of the city were my muses. In their lifeless forms I found beauty that was missing in the living. Each new piece was a challenge, a puzzle that I had to solve. How could I best sculpture the essence of this person? What story did their flesh want to tell? I experimented with different techniques, different styles. Some were simple, elegant in their minimalism. Others were complex, a chaotic blend of flesh and blood that told a story of inner turmoil. I became more brazen with my displays, leaving my creations in public places for the world to see. A park, a bridge, the steps of a museum. Each location was carefully chosen to complement the piece. I wanted the world to see my art, to understand the depth of my vision. The city was in a state of constant fear. People no longer walked the streets alone at night. The police were under pressure to catch me, but they were always one step behind. They didn't understand the art of what I was doing. They were looking for a murderer, not an artist. In the midst of my growing infamy, I found an unlikely admirer, a detective who had been following my work from the start. He saw the art in my kills, understood the messages I was trying to convey. He became obsessed with finding me, not to arrest me, but to understand me. He reached out to me through social media, a plea for me to reveal myself. He promised to keep my identity secret, to help me continue my work without the fear of capture. It was a tempting offer, but I knew better than to trust the police. Still, it was flattering to know that someone out there understood me, even admired me. As the months passed, my art evolved into something even I hadn't imagined. I started incorporating other elements into my work. Metal, glass, wood, anything that could add another layer to the story I was telling. My studio became a sanctuary, a place where I could escape the chaos of the world and focus on my creations. But even as I reveled in my success, I knew that it couldn't last forever. The police were closing in, their investigation leading them dangerously close to my true identity. I had to be more careful, more cunning, if I wanted to continue my work. And so, I planned my most ambitious piece yet. It would be a grand display, a culmination of all my previous works. It would be my legacy, a testament to the genius of my art. I spent weeks planning, selecting the perfect location, the perfect victim. The night of the grand display was one I'll never forget. The city was alive with anticipation, the police on high alert. I had chosen a busy street, a place where my work would be seen by hundreds. The victim was a young man, someone whose life had been a series of struggles and defeats. In him, I saw a kindred spirit, someone who had been beaten down by the world. I worked quickly, transforming his body into a masterpiece. The final touches were added just as the sun began to rise, casting a golden light on my creation. I stepped back to admire my work, a feeling of satisfaction washing over me. The reaction was immediate. People stopped in their tracks, horror and fascination etched on their faces. The police arrived within minutes, but I was already gone, melting into the crowd, just another face in the sea of people. The media called it my magnum opus, the pinnacle of my career. The detective who had been following my work praised the artistry of the piece, even as he vowed to catch me. But I knew he never would. I was always one step ahead, always in control. As I sit here now in my studio, I know that my journey is far from over. There are still countless stories to be told, lives to be transformed. The city is my canvas, and I am its most devoted artist. My work will continue, in the shadows where I can create without fear, without limits. For I am not just a killer, I am an artist, and art is eternal.